Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Criscolo, and this is my multimedia presentation for Edfn 545. Just to go over a couple quick things and just kind of give you my background. So I'm a special education English teacher, as I kind of talked about in my hello introductory video. So I'm a learning support teacher. So I mainly focus on those reading and writing skills with the kids in direct instruction English. I also teach direct instruction study skills as well. And the cool part about that is I get to teach grades 9 through 12. So in some classes, I'll have, two freshmen, a sophomore, two juniors, and three seniors. So like it varies class by class depending on the need and the certain skill that we're teaching. So that's always pretty exciting. Teaching just runs in my family. My parents and several relatives were educators, so I grew up seeing the impact that teachers can have on the world and on students. So that inspired me to pursue education myself. I chose English and more special education specifically because I've always loved to communicate with students. You get to have that one-on-one relationship with students a lot more in special education because the class sizes are smaller and you have students on your caseload that you have to check in with. I want to support students that struggle and may not see themselves as capable because I understand that perspective. School was always a positive experience for me. And I think that as I went up the ranks in college and things like that, I saw that it wasn't always the case for students. So I want to try to give them the most positive experience for me. And I had teachers that made a real difference. It helped build my confidence. And build my love for education and English specifically as well. So I want to be able to give them the tools and the confidence in English and just in general to help them succeed in whatever they may want to pursue. So that's just a little introduction. So to answer the question, like how students learn best or best ways to teach, I believe that students learn best when they feel safe, they feel supported, and more importantly, when they feel respected. So Carol Dweck kind of talked about this in her reading. So Carol Dweck talks about the power of believing you can improve, and students need to see challenges as opportunities to grow, not just as reflections or fixed ability. In her TED talk, she describes the idea of not yet, which is just reminding students that even if they haven't mastered a skill, it doesn't mean that they won't or that they can't. It just means it just not yet, right? It hasn't happened yet. And in my classroom, this shows up and how I scaffold lessons. Like, so for example, with writing, we start with small steps, brainstorming, outlining, then building body paragraphs, so you work your way up. So each success in each area reinforces the idea that growth is possible, right? Like, again, it's not just going to happen overnight and it's not going to happen right away, but you have to take those little steps to get there. And also just having students also learn better when they connect material to their own lives, right? Like analyzing song lyrics, writing about personal experiences, right? You have to be able to tailor to their needs so they want to come into your classroom and learn every day. And also just talking about like Angela Duckworth's information as well, just her work on grit, defining it as passion and perseverance. It also resonates here with everything I'm talking about as well. Students may not always succeed on the first try, but what Duckworth was talking about, by persisting and practicing, they can improve over time. And I try to model that grit by showing that I too can learn from setbacks and keep going as well. I always talk about the mistakes that I made when I was younger, whether it was in school or vice versa. To remind students, like, no one's perfect. Everyone has their own background and makes their own mistakes. Just some of the issues that students face. So the students I work with face many challenges, right? We're talking about like learning support, where students they struggle with reading, writing, math, etc. I also work very close with the emotional support team here. So you have students that struggle with anxiety, maybe having low confidence. Students with ADHD who may have difficulty focusing. We're talking about study skills, just balancing that school and work life, or just life in general, just balancing everything that comes their way, or with other responsibilities they may have. Adolescents also experience like social pressures, excuse me. They're just trying to figure out who they are, to be quite honest with you. And there's a lot of influences, whether it has to do with celebrities, TV shows, technology, which can, obviously everyone's on their phones all the time. So that can either, help them or distract them. Depends on the kid, depends on what needs they may have. So when talking about like some of the research by Destin that I was reading about this week, it shows that talking about students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds are more likely to hold that fixed mindset about intelligence, right? So those beliefs combined with some of the inequalities that may have can widen that achievement gap, right? So that's why it's so important for me as a teacher and also all the educators that I work with to push those growth mindset messages, right? That intelligence comes from the effort that you put in. You can always learn and adapt and continue to grow, right? So I think pushing those messages is really key. And just like my response to build those strong relationships and create a classroom culture where it's safe to take risks, right? Students fail, you have to frame it as part of the learning process, right? You try to connect them to real opportunities and continue to push those messages that you can grow and that every pathway is available to you, right? Just talking about how this course and how it can help me. I believe this course will strengthen my understanding of how the mindsets and teaching dispositions shape learning. We're talking about Carol Dweck's work. It reminds me to kind of focus on my effort and strategies rather than labeling students, which I know some teachers can get into. Duckworth's research also shows that persistence over time matters more than quick success, right? And talking about Alton's work as well, emphasizing the expert teaching is about dispositions, right? We're talking about the habits of mind, right? Like habits like persisting, thinking flexibly, and managing that impulsivity are not just things that I want to cultivate in students, they're qualities I need to model in myself, right? So again, this course can help me reflect on some of those things and strengthen those habits as well. These are some of the concerns and how to learn best for me. Like one concern I have about educational psychology is just maybe feeling overwhelmed about the number of theories and approaches that take place. There's so many of them that we might be able to read about in this course and just in general, just for my learning as an educator, that I want to make sure I can apply everything meaningfully and not take little bits and pieces of it and kind of just mesh it all together, not have it be meaningful, but just really trying to tie everything together and make sure it works well for my students. And and I learn best when theory connects to practice, right? Like when Dweck's talking about that growth mindset, right? I want to be able to encourage. Excuse me, pardon. Like when Dweck talks about that growth mindset research, how it connects directly to how I encourage students after I make mistakes, right? I also learn best just by like reflection and discussion and talking to other educators, and hearing different perspectives as well. Overall, I'm really excited to continue diving into this course. I know it'll help me grow not just in my knowledge of psychology, but also in just in the dispositions and things that I do as a teacher on the daily. And I want to continue developing those habits like empathy, flexibility, persistence, having that grit like we talked about as well. And I know I can continue to help my students grow and continue to be resilient and give them that growth mindset as we move forward here. That is my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and I look forward to seeing some of your comments in D2L.